Greetings from the voice of Allan Kardec.
And welcome from the voice of the spirits.
We are here once again to take you on another one of those small journeys through the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. Today we will start Dissatisfaction with Life, Suicide, covering questions 943 to 952.
Enjoy.
Question 943. Where does the dissatisfaction with life come from, which takes hold of some individuals without any plausible reason?
It is the effect of idleness, lack of faith, and usually satiety. For those who employ their faculties with a useful purpose and according to their natural aptitudes, labor has nothing barren about it, and life flows more quickly. They bear life's tribulations with patience and resignation because they look forward to the more solid and lasting happiness awaiting them.
Question 944. Do people have the right to take their own life?
No, only God has that right. Those who intentionally commit suicide commit a transgression against this law.
Sub-question 944. Is suicide always intentional?
Insane individuals who kill themselves do not know what they are doing.
Question 945. What is to be thought of those who commit suicide because they are dissatisfied with life?
Folly. Why didn't they work? Life would not have seemed so heavy to them.
Question 946. What about those who resort to suicide in order to escape from the troubles and disappointments of this world?
Poor spirits who do not have the courage to bear the misfortunes of life. God helps those who suffer, but not those who have neither strength nor courage. The tribulations of life are meant as trials or expiations. Happy are they who bear them without complaining, for they shall be rewarded. But woe to those who in their impiety hope to find salvation in chance. Chance or luck, to borrow their own language, may in fact favor them for a moment, but only to make them later and more cruelly feel the emptiness of their words.
Sub-question 946. Won't those who have driven an unhappy person to this act of despair suffer the consequences of their action?
Unfortunate beings, they will have to answer for it as for a murder.
Question 947. Can those who have become disheartened with necessity and who allow themselves to die of despair be considered as having committed suicide?
It is suicide, but those who have caused it, or those who could have prevented it, are guiltier than those for whom clemency awaits. However, do not think they will be entirely absolved if they lacked firmness and perseverance, or failed to make the best use of their intelligence to get themselves out of their difficulties. They will be even more unfortunate if their despair was the child of pride. That is, if they were one of those whose pride paralyzes their intelligence, who would be ashamed at having to earn their living by manual labor, and who would prefer to die of starvation rather than descend from what they call their social position. Isn't there 100 times more greatness and dignity in struggling against adversity, in braving the criticism of a feudal and selfish society, which only shows goodwill towards those who lack nothing, and which turns its back on you in your time of need? To throw away one's life because of considerations of such a society is a stupid thing, since society will not care about it in the least.
Question 948. Is suicide committed in order to escape the shame of an evil act, as reprehensible as suicide committed out of despair?
Suicide does not erase the wrong. On the contrary, it is a second wrong added to the first. Those who have the courage to do evil should have the courage to bear the consequences. God is the one who judges. Moreover, depending on the cause, God can at times lessen its punishment.
Question 949. Is suicide excusable when committed in order to avoid bringing shame on one's children or family?
Those who act under this belief do no good at all. However, they think they do, and God will take their intention into account. For their suicide will be a self-imposed expiation. The wrong is mitigated by their intention, but it is a wrong nonetheless. Besides, if you would get rid of your social prejudices and abuses, you would not have any more suicides.
Author's remarks for question 949. Those who take their own life in order to escape the shame of an evil act prove that they attach more value to the estimation of others than to that of God, because they will return to their spirit life burdened with their iniquities, and will have deprived themselves of the means of atoning for them during life. God is often less unforgiving than people. God pardons those who sincerely repent and takes into account other efforts at reparation. However, suicide does not repair anything. Question 950. What is to be thought of those who take their own life in the hope of arriving sooner at a better life?
Another folly. Let them do good, and they will be sure to reach such a state. Their suicide will only delay their entrance into a better world, and they themselves will ask to come back in order to complete the life that they cut short through a wrong-headed idea. A wrong, no matter what it may be, never opens the sanctuary of the elect to anyone.
Question 951. Isn't the sacrifice of one's life sometimes meritorious when it is made in order to save the lives of others, or to be useful to one's neighbor?
In accordance with such intention, it is sublime, and such a sacrifice of life is therefore not a suicide. However, God opposes a meaningless sacrifice and cannot look upon it with pleasure if it is tarnished by pride. A sacrifice is not meritorious unless it is selfless. Unfortunately, those who make such a sacrifice sometimes have ulterior motives, and this decreases its value in God's sight.
Author's remarks for question 951. Every sacrifice made at the cost of our own happiness is a supremely meritorious act in God's sight, for it is the practice of the law of charity. Additionally, since life is the earthly asset that we value the most, those who renounce it for the good of their neighbor do not commit a crime. They perform a sacrifice. Nonetheless, before doing so, they should consider whether their life might not be more useful than their death. Question 952. Is it considered suicide for those who die as victims of the abuse of their own passions, which they knew would hasten their end, but which they could no longer resist because habit turned their passions into true physical needs?
It is a moral suicide. Don't you see that they are doubly guilty in such a case? They lack courage and yield to brutishness. Moreover, they forget about God.
Sub-question 952. Are they more or less guilty than those who shorten their life out of despair?
They are guiltier because they had time to reason about their suicide. For those who commit suicide on the spur of the moment There is sometimes a kind of delirium that approaches insanity. The former will be punished much more than the latter, because punishments are always in proportion to the awareness of one's wrongdoing.